Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Civic Signal. This is Sam and Brandon, and today we're going to just do a short video discussing what is politics. We're going to talk about the different considerations that go into politics, what different people mean when they say, I like politics, or oh, I try to avoid politics. And then we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into what political science is and how political science contributes to politics.
And the first thing that we need to understand when we're trying to define what politics is what an interest is. So every single person, doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, you have interests. And in this context, we don't really mean that you're like interested in sports or you're interested in movies. An interest in this context is an outcome, a benefit, or a condition that you or your group want to produce or to protect.
If it's just you, you're the only person, then you can just do whatever is in your best interest or what you perceive to be in your best interest. But as soon as you add in more people, from the smallest look, if you look at a family or even just a marriage, or you look at a business partnership, there's only two people. They're not always 100% aligned in their interests, and this just becomes a bigger and bigger issue that needs to be solved. Not issue meaning it's bad, but just meaning that it's something that is going to take work to solve the more people you add to it. And so as soon as you have a state, a society, a nation, a world, then there's a lot of competing interests, and you're going to have people who hold certain interests to be very valuable to them, and they're willing to work very hard to try to achieve those interests. And then on the other side, you have people who have the opposing interest that they're willing to work just as hard to try to stop that interest from happening for the first group.
So, what is politics? Like Sam was saying, we need to solve these conflicts in what people's interests are. And really, the way that we solve conflicts of interests is through methods like collective action or distributing resources or sometimes even force. When we are trying to solve a conflict of interest, what it really boils down to is power. Now, this is our definition of what politics is, and it's kind of an amalgamation of a lot of definitions that we've seen. But what me and Sam have kind of agreed on is politics is the process through which societies determine how power is distributed and exercised to solve collective action problems and distribute resources.
So this definition, again, like Brandon was saying, touches on a lot of things. One thing that is discussed a lot in politics and political science that not everybody may be familiar with is collective action problems. And all that a collective action problem is how do we bring a lot of people together to solve a problem?
A really famous political scientist and professor of law at Yale named Harold Laswell has a very simple definition. He says politics is who gets what, when, and how. This definition can be applied to the smallest groups of two individuals, to families, to neighborhoods, businesses, countries, and then how countries interact on the international stage. All of that is political because problems of conflicts of interests need to be solved and power needs to be distributed to do it.
So one thing that you'll hear people say a lot is some version of I like politics. I'm interested in it, or on the other side, I don't like it. I try to avoid politics. I don't understand politics. So we just want to kind of dive into what do people mean when they say this, and how can this really be interpreted? How does that fit into what politics actually is?
So the first thing that people might mean when they say I like politics is that they really like political entertainment and gossip. They really like to watch the news and the outrage and the scandal of what people have said, what kind of groups have been insulted, who did what. And there's a lot of conversation in the media about political entertainment and gossip. And while that is political, that doesn't quite encapsulate the entire definition of politics, but it's definitely one aspect.
Yeah. Another important aspect that is only one part of what politics is that people may mean is I like to keep up with current events. I like to know what's going on in the world, in the country, in my area, and I like to be informed and maybe even make judgment calls. I like to analyze these events and say, oh, I think this is going to be a really positive thing, or oh, I think that this is really going to lead to a lot of harm. Again, this is part of politics, and this is something that some people really like, some people don't like, but it's not really politics in the whole.
So the next thing that people might mean is they really like to talk about political theory and hypotheticals. And what we mean by this is they really like to discuss, debate, argue about how things should be. And a lot of people who are interested or get involved in politics tend to start at this point. They like to learn about and discuss different systems of government or different economic structures. They like to talk about changes that could hypothetically, but maybe not realistically, be made to make things work better. And so this other aspect of politics is maybe not very substantive, but it's at the root of basically all political behavior.
And then the last part that we highlighted here is policymaking. And this has a lot of different key aspects. It's also the most probably impactful. And if we had to pick one that is the most like the general definition of politics, but this is how do legislatures accomplish an agenda? How is it that you're passing policies? What kind of compromises are you having to make? How are you getting the word out to garner support for it and get that through? This is people who are very interested in law, sitting down, reading through court rulings to really understand all of the implications of certain policies and their limitations with decisions that a president or a governor may make over the military or through executive orders or in their governance over the bureaucracy and the different agencies that they control. So, this is ultimately, when we look back at our definition of politics with that key aspect of power, this is where the power is actually being flexed. This is how decisions are being made and then ultimately are going to be enforced.
And another aspect of politics that really goes strongly with policymaking, but might even warrant its own bullet point, would be like activism, getting involved in protests or lobbying. That's all really important in the policymaking process, and it's something that a lot of people really enjoy participating in.
So the next question that we wanted to discuss just briefly is what is political science? How does it fit into politics? I know that at least for myself, when I became a political science major at a university, I had not quite the most accurate picture of what political science was. And I think that this can be helpful for people who may be interested in politics and think they may be interested in political science. And you may be or you may not be. So ultimately, political science is the application of the scientific method to answer questions about politics.
So we learned about the scientific method all the way back in elementary school. It involves first asking a question and then doing a ton of research on your question, generating a theory for what you think the answer might be, and then figuring out how you're going to test it, coming up with hypotheses, running the experiment, or however other way you're going to try to test your hypotheses. And then you analyze the results and communicate them. So the branch of political science is just like any other scientific discipline, in that it uses this method to answer questions and create knowledge.
Just like the other aspects of politics that we've already discussed, political science is not politics encapsulated. It is one aspect of politics, and it's an important one. Political science is also a relatively new thing. Political science has not been around as long as politics has, but it's very important in our modern political climate because it helps us answer questions qualitatively and quantitatively that are going to help lead to better decision making. So, political campaigns, for example, will have teams of political scientists who are running surveys to figure out the effectiveness of certain decisions that they're making or want to make.
So we've defined politics and we've talked a lot about the different maybe sub definitions or the different aspects of politics that people might be referring to when they say, I like politics. And the really cool thing about politics is you don't have to enjoy or participate or even follow every single aspect in order to contribute to society and participate in the process.
And here at the Civic Signal, our YouTube channel is specifically focused on looking at political science research and then having a discussion about the ways that we can apply it to those other aspects of politics. For example, in our videos, we may talk about how a certain finding may impact the way that you vote or that you discuss partisanship with other people. And we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to look at political science research and talk about how that can impact our general interactions with politics.
So make sure you check out our other videos and subscribe so you don't miss future ones. And we'd love to hear what you think in the comments section. This has been Brandon and Sam from the Civic Signal, and thank you for watching.